I think you're on mute, John.
You're live, bro. You've been live for
There we
like
go.
8
Oh
seconds.
yeah? Wait, are you serious?
Yes, yes, you're live, man. Go,
All
go.
right. Hey, how's it going? Oh, did we just lose John? It looks like I'm live. I don't know what just happened to John, but I'll introduce myself. Oh, all right. What's going on
You're
here?
killing me, man. Okay. So we're doing this interview. Obviously, we wanted to share and talk about the origin story of Tesla owners of Silicon Valley. So, what better way than to bring in Steven, who's going to conduct the interview? Steven, go for it. If
Hey
you want
everyone.
to do
So
your
I'm
quick.
Stephen Plata. I am the director of business development for Tesla owners Silicon Valley. Have been with them since about early mid October. Crazy backstory to all of that, but I've actually known John for probably 2.5, 3 years on a fairly strong basis, and even probably a little bit before then as well. But I've got to see the TOSV growth story really over the last maybe 5 years or so, and it's been incredible. Absolute honor to be a part of the team, part of the TOSV family, the Tesla family, and excited to do this interview today. It's going to be about the foundations and the future of TOSV. So, cool backstory on John, his growing up into who he became, how that transitioned into founding TOSV, and then a little bit, if we have time, we'll go into the future of what TOSV holds and maybe even some thoughts about the future of Tesla as well.
Thanks, dude. Thanks for running it. But yeah, I think as we've been doing this interview series, I thought, it'd be awesome to just like level set. So thanks for, taking your time this morning to just share the story of Tesla owners of Silicon Valley, man.
Sure. So for not that we need a warm up at this point, but I have a fun question to kind of just get things going, to get people an understanding of who you are and kind of how you operate. So little icebreaker question for you, which is you're starting a company with Elon Musk. What's the company? What are you doing? What's the purpose, the mission? Just dive in deep from the very start, right?
Oh
So
my, jeez.
by the way, just so everyone knows, John has no real understanding of what the questions are today. Tried to keep this as organic as possible. So hopefully, I'm not going to put you too much on the spot throughout this, John.
Yeah, no worries, man. Man, it's hard. I can't believe you're asking me that question because it's like the guy's already doing so much. So what else could you actually do? I'm just, this is actually something. Okay, so this is totally off the cuff. This is not really the most innovative thing. This is probably one of those things where, from my perspective, is probably one of the biggest problems probably in the United States. So it's not, and again, you're just asking me because it's not like I could say rockets or cars or whatever. So this might be a boring one. It would probably be maybe two things. And he may get to this, but it's, airlines, right? I think making some type of plane, and again, I don't know exactly, creating batteries and the backup for a battery, literally, if you're in it midair and battery goes out, like what do you do? But um, you know, airline prices have gone like just so out of control. And so it would be awesome to see innovation for like the first time in 6 decades, to see someone kind of like completely overhaul that whole process, and him created in a way where it's like kind of like reusable rockets, but reusable planes where you're not even using fuel. So can you imagine? Again, I don't know if Tesla would ever actually step into this. I mean, they would. I don't think he would create a new company. But imagine now, like you remove the cost of gas for these
Right.
airplanes, right?
Right.
Kind of like what he's doing with reusable rockets, right? Rockets were one and done, and I think it's like 10 to 100x cheaper now. So I think if you can create an airplane that removes gas, and not even for the environmental reasons, I'm just talking specifically the cost reasons.
Yeah.
That's number one. And then number two, again, this is kind of off the cusp, would be like probably the medical industry.
Mm.
Um, Medical bills, insurance, prescription drugs has just been so out of control. So I don't know exactly what type of problems he could solve there, if it's equipment, if it's, creating a business model for prescription drugs. Again, that's not really the greatest use of his brain per se. It's more probably on the, you know, but those are like, two of the things that just kind of like come to mind that just seem like a really big, issue as far as things that could be re-innovated. So
Yeah.
again, that's off the cusp. You
Yeah,
just
John was not prepped for this question. It's definitely a pretty hardcore one to start off. Hey, you're starting a company with Elon. What are you doing?
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
but that's great. There was actually something recently where I think Elon tweeted it was showing how much space you need on an airplane for the compression tanks. Like hypothetically, if you wanted to do hydrogen powered, aircraft, it is really not that great of a use of space. I forgot. Maybe we could. I don't know if there's a way to put it in post or something. I know it's live right now. But there's a little picture of an airplane that it shows how much space on the actual like of the vessel you need for the different tanks, and it's pointless. So to find a way to make it electric would be very cool. So, and then actually, just even on your second point, I was I was watching something on Kanye this morning where he said he's actually working on like vertical integration of communities where even medical is a part of it. This is something that he wants to work on. So cool that you mentioned that. All right, so we'll dive in now into the past. Not that that wasn't a significant question, but want to know a little bit about you, about what molded you into the man that you are today. Some of the blessings that have come, some of the lessons and the struggles. You can go back as far as childhood, but you are who you are today. You're very successful. You've created a super successful organization, and just how did you become who you are? Some of the best pieces of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can share, some of the things from like childhood, some of the things. So I'll kind of, without giving like a biography, I mean, of my life, the two or three things that just come to mind, that kind of made me really just who I am today, but also to kind of just a no nonsense type person as far as just dealing with certain things. So like when I was actually, when I was in my late teens, my mom passed away from stomach cancer. And so for me, like going through that, not only did that was a huge time when my faith took a huge part of my life, but it really, not only became like, again, my faith, but just also, being a teenager when you're trying to fit in high school and going through the death of a parent. It's not something you can really like relate to. Like everyone's just dealing with drama, like who can fit in and, trying to fit in, trying to, date people, trying to do sports and like your parents dying. And so it's like and you're not trying to minimize what your friends are going through, but it's like really like so what if someone's calling you a name? So what if a girl
Right.
rejected you or something? And so that matured me really fast, but it also brought me to having a faith with Jesus and to really again building, starting a solid foundation. Because really at that time, to be honest with you, like my mom passed, and actually my father at that point had kind of bailed on the family. So for me, it was just one of those things where yeah. So without going in super details, that's where I kind of come from this, like we're literally dealing with this kind of nonsense. And, I'm just, again, not, I hate dealing with drama. It's just life is short. There's no point in a lot of it, especially when, you're doing something that's trying to help everybody. Right.
Right,
So I would
right.
say that's the biggest thing. And then the second thing was obviously marrying my wife, who also, I'm not going to get into her story, but she also had a pretty insane story as well.
Mm.
But she's been not only my greatest supporter, she's also the person that told me about Tesla. She's the one that told
Wow.
me,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
That's how
exactly.
you know she was the one, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But she told me about Tesla, like, and again, I'm not necessarily new to the community by today's standards because there's been so many people coming in, but really it was
Yeah.
2018 when I started to dive more into Tesla. So I'm not one of those people who's been around since 2012.
Mm.
or since the IPO. Shout out to, Amy and Herbert out there, who are some amazing people who have a long-winded experience of this company and who have truly seen the remarkable turnaround, and the highs and the lows. And so, but yeah, so, and then, through all of that, the thing that's kind of been unique as well has been, I've always had a desire to connect with people, to build communities, and also I always knew that wanted to be in technology in some form. And so obviously I work in tech, and being able to, I think when I got my Tesla, and I don't want to, I won't go into like necessarily how the club started, but I'll put it this way. It's like, it's one of those things, finding out about Tesla, experiencing it for the first time, because I know we're going to kind of get into this, and then realizing, that this combines both. Like, this
Yeah,
group combines the technology and the community. So I know I don't I don't want to lead up to any questions, but yeah, so it was like through those, through the, experience when I was a teenager, to not only when I was a teenager, to, having an amazing wife slash support system, and then also to partially just based on who I was. Those were all kind of the big things that, really opened up this incredible opportunity. And, I'm not going to say it was, right place, right time, just random chance, because there's no way. All the amount of things that had to have lined up, just is pretty mind blowing. And finding something that you're incredibly good at, and that you just kind of, there's very few things in life you'll be a part of that is just, you just hit home runs every single time. And being a part of this club and organization and community, has been an absolute pleasure, and meeting some of the most amazing people. But again, finding something you're passionate about, something you love, and being able to do it, that's one of those unique things in life that you can experience.
for
So
sure.
I encourage everyone, like, not, it's a balance, right? Because it's like, sure, I'm like following my passion, but I'm not doing this full time by any means. This is just something I've poured an incredible amount of time into. And it's not, to be honest with you, at least running the club full time is never going to be in the cards, living in the Bay Area. It's just not. So
It's a little expensive in there, yeah.
yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's just not in the cards. And so really at the end of the day, this is, y- you know, being a part of this community is so much bigger than anything that I'm actually trying to do. It's not about personal gain. It's not about building a fat channel. It's not about putting myself in front of certain people. However people may feel or think about that, but it's really about, again, building a community, becoming a voice, becoming a resource to owners as they get their Model 3, their Model Y, S and X, and Cybertruck later this year. So that's really what it's about. It's about the community. It's about being a resource. It's about, being able to answer your lamest question, to where should you go get a wrap, to what is the latest update that just came out, learning about the price drops in sales, learning about the awesome all electric RV that just came out. It's just, we just want to be a resource, and be able to tell people and guide people on great, great news and things that are happening in the life of Tesla in general. Because really, we're in like maybe the second inning if you think of baseball, American baseball. I know we have some shout out to the people in Europe that we may be on watching right now. But as far as baseball, you have like 9 innings. We're really in the second or third inning. So you're not even halfway through the journey of this company. And, we get to be at the forefront of that, of telling that story, that as it unwinds and as they go. And so, we'll see. I haven't, I don't have a crystal ball on, like, how Tesla's going to be, how Elon's involvement's going to be. I mean, the guy's early 50s, but he's also running 150 miles an hour. So there's no guarantees in that. But either way, it's been, yeah. So that's a very long winded answer. But that's kind of, the, yeah, to answer your question.
Maybe just one more question on your childhood, especially. I didn't know that about your mother, and your father as well. But besides, I know you have at least one sibling, but who else was in your life at those early ages? Just because I'm thinking about about our following, especially as our TikTok has like blown up like wildfire, and Twitter is at like 640,000. But we have people that follow from all different ages, places around the country, different walks of life. What would you say, or who would you say was a positive impact for you, maybe at that age, at some point in high school, just to point someone who's younger, who maybe is going through potentially literally the exact same thing that you are, and just guide them onto maybe how to stay strong? I know you said your faith was a huge part of that. But as far as maybe seeking like a mentor, or just any other advice you'd be able to give them.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is mentors. Again, yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm getting preachy here, but yeah, it was like, people at my church were a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Being able to lean on people through those struggles, was a big part of it as well. And again, a lot of it had to do with I didn't fit into the mold in high school because you're going through such a crazy experience. My mom passed away from stomach cancer. So I always joke that cancer it's a blessing and it's not.
Mm.
It's a blessing because you get 2 months, 1 month, 2 weeks, 11 months like my mom to say goodbye.
Right.
Versus if your parent is driving and then they get hit by a car, you don't get to say goodbye. So
Right.
that's the one thing. It's like, yeah. So it's just one of those things where for me, I had a mentor, specifically an older guy, who actually kind of became like a father figure. And he actually, again, it was at our church, but also too, I had joined a kind of like a college age group. It was like, young adults and again, people in the Christian faith through the church, really. And so that's really what helped me to meet me where I was at, because again, I didn't fit in with the kids that, um, I really didn't fit into the mold as far as like what other people were thinking. And so again, I don't want to beat this drum, but going through that pretty radical experience, it was just one of those things where leaning on the people in your community, finding people you can ask the hard questions, and especially if you're one of those people that deals with this in high school, where you can actually ask those hard questions, where you can actually process those things, but you need people you can process those things with. I think a
Yeah.
lot
Super
of times,
trusted, and for sure.
yeah, again, without going too much into this, like I remember I skipped the week before my mom. So my mom passed away um in like October, in an October month. I skipped, I think, yeah, the week prior to when she died. I was there the whole week because she wasn't looking good. She dies, I have a week off, and then I'm back at school. And it's like, again, you're like a 16-year-old boy, and it's like you
Right.
don't really, yeah, you don't get that experience, man. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
There's
it's just like,
there's a component too where it's you look at some of the greatest leaders, just Elon, for example. And have you read the biography, the Ashley Vance biography?
parts of it, not the whole
Okay,
thing for sure.
so he definitely had to go through some, not even just his childhood alone. Obviously, there was this childhood part where he pushed down the stairs, and deviated septum, I think it was, or like some just crappy physical stuff. But it just, as far as growing into Tesla, that point in 2008, right, where it was SpaceX Tesla. Well, one of them could survive if I put all of it in. He's like, all right, we're I'm betting it
Yeah,
all on both. Not that it was a bet per se. Um, but by being refined by fire, going through some suffering, that definitely forms you into becoming the best version you can be. So, but
yeah,
it's great
totally,
that you've had a positive outlook, through life's most difficult times.
exactly.
So I did want to ask you, how was it that your wife introduced you to Tesla? I want to hear about that.
So at the time, Bay Area traffic, it's gotten a little bit better, but Bay Area traffic, I'm not gonna, take the card for being as bad as LA. LA is the worst. But I was driving 70 mile, and you actually hear this in some of, when you and I are on calls, you and I end up, you hear you typically hear my story of like how the club started, but it was, it did kind of, you know, kind of have that life-changing experience in that, at the time I was driving 70 miles a day, and the only way to really speed up your driving was to get an EV to get in the carpool lane. So there was a ton of incentives to go and get a new EV, and that being one of them was, hey, you'll get $10,000 off, you'll get a carpool sticker. And again, I was driving 70 miles a day. So important for me to be able to um, find something that was affordable. And so she was already thinking of it. And so that what ended up happening is we had a neighbor who actually was getting rid of their reservation, and they couldn't, their brother-in-law or someone, whoever, could not, um, they could not actually, what's the word, like afford it still. So she just shows the thing to me, like, hey, are you interested? And again, I kind of had vaguely heard about Tesla, but it definitely was not on my radar. And I was like, sure, let me go check this card out. And the guy, we met
This
up at
is what year?
Starbucks.
2017, 2018?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I show up and I'm like, and I've been a car guy, but probably more, I've been more focused on like, Integras, Subaru 2.5 RS, like kind of
JDM stuff or what?
like the 90s.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like kind of like the Fast and Furious type cars, not
Right.
necessarily the old, like, like Mustangs and like Chevy Camaros and all that stuff, right? Like none of that stuff. It was more of the like Hondas and Toyotas and obviously the Subaru. So, I knew cars, like I knew, but I'm not going to say I was like a car nut, but I met up with with the neighbor at Starbucks. He showed me the car. I took it for a drive. And then I remember walking away one time and he's like, and the window, the windows collapsed. And he's like, yeah, that man, that's, so we walk away and then, the window, the side mirrors collapse. He's like, yeah, man, that's like James Bond stuff. I was like, I was like, dude, you're kind of right.
Sold. Yeah, sold.
So
I'm in.
yeah, exactly. So long story short, I looked at the numbers and then based off the tax credit, it was, I believe at the time it was like $55,000. And looking back actually now, and you're getting about $10,000 back. So you're looking at 45,000. It definitely wasn't a cheap car. I hadn't ever spent more than probably $25,000 on a car, to
So
be
your
honest.
first Tesla was a Model 3 then?
Yes, long
Okay,
range.
okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Without going into too many, I mean, unless you want to go there, I had 3 Teslas in a year. Yeah, so it became addicting. So it's just like one of those things where, I ended up, yeah, getting that. And then, like I said, it just autopilot really just changes your life. And sorry, I'll hit on that story. Long story short, I got a long range. They announced a performance that same month. I was like,
Missed it by that
bro,
much.
you're killing me. So then I called up one of my brother-in-law. I was like, yo, you wanted a Model 3, right? Take mine and I'm gonna get a performance one. And they were giving free supercharging that same time.
Wow.
So then long story short, I literally just hand him, like we essentially work out the financing. He takes over. I get the Model 3 performance. Probably about 8 or 9 months later, I'm looking at Model X's because I'm like growing family and, and then the
Is
pre-Raven.
the reason you had more kids just so you can convince your wife you needed a Model X? Is this the secret? Is the secret out, John?
No, no. But either way, the Ravens were coming out and they were dumping the pre-Ravens for the Model X. So it doesn't have like, some of the adaptive suspension and some of the other stuff, right? So long story short, they were giving out free lifetime supercharging again. So not only did I have a Model 3 free supercharging, but then they were doing it on the Model X, which depending on who you are, I'm one of those people, I only supercharge. And so, cause it's free.
You don't have home charging?
I do. I have a
Okay.
shout out to Blink. I have a Blink HQ200, amazing product. It's great. I could have bought the wall connector, but I wanted to try something different. So I do have it as an emergency, but for me I love being out in the community. So I love going charging. I plan my errands around it. Like the other night, I went to Target, got a bunch of stuff done. So that's kind of, again, just me. And so like I get every dollar worth of that supercharging. So all that to say is that I literally found probably the best deal like I could ever find. I got $40,000 off of my Model X. Yeah,
You
it's
get it
pretty
from like
insane.
Rich Rebuilds? It was totaled or something? Like how
No,
did this
it
happen?
was a demo car out of
Wow.
Miami. They were giving away ludicrous mode for free. Ludicrous mode was $20,000 for free at the time because again they were getting rid of all of the inventory. Then they also gave me an additional $20,000 off because it was a showroom model, and then free supercharging. And then the last thing, I was like, okay, this deal's too incredible. I was like, deposit, here you go, just take my money, right? And then it was like, can you bring it to San Francisco from Miami? And then they were like, once the order went in, the hand is not talking to the other hand. So long story short, they shipped it out but then a day or two later, they said, oh, we can't, but they didn't realize it had been shipped out. So either way, but that's one of those things where sometimes, they're clearing inventory and kind of actually a little bit of what you're seeing now where there's a bunch of price drops and they were heavily discounting some of their demo vehicles. If you check the website a couple of days ago, those are probably all cleaned out by now. But yeah, so it was kind of just like too good of a deal to pass up. And so that's why FWAD is even extra special. And for those that don't
Who
know what
is? Can
FWAD
you just
means,
for those who don't know, who is
yeah,
fraud?
it means fraud. It means fraud because Elon was called a fraud and Tesla was called a fraud and that they would go bankrupt. So it's like
Bankrupt.
probably one of the most iconic names. Everyone thinks they actually think it's like some other type of like name. They think it's my name or something. And I'm like, no, it means fraud. I'm literally driving fraud.
Yeah, living proof of an absolute fraud, right?
Exactly.
So, all right. So now you have your Model X. At what point? When did you start TOSV? When did it come to you? Who did you start it
Yeah.
with?
So yeah. Oh, and sorry, I want to finish this last thing. Uh, I keep the Model 3 Performance? No, I called up my brother-in-law again. And I said, "Hey, you want free lifetime supercharging, right?" He's like, "Of course." And then so we did a swap again. He sold his, I think, to CarMax at the time or something. He gets rid of the Model 3, and then I get the X and he gets the Model 3 Performance with free supercharging. So yeah, it's just one of those things where that's kind of the transition. But so yeah, how did TOSV start? And this makes one of those things that, our club, like very unique. I bought my Model 3, got it in July, like 4th or 5th or July 8th, something of like 2018. I get the car and I'm like, and at the time it was actually still like people were like, oh, is that a Model 3? Kind of like probably like it is like Rivian, but not with the same excitement, I'll be honest. And so it was still really cool. So long story short, I wasn't one of those people who got on like Tesla Motors Club forum or, Tesla Owners Online or Model 3 Owners Club. It wasn't one of those things where, that was something that, I was like getting on any of those. But I got on Twitter because Elon was on Twitter and he was interacting, talking about Tesla a ton. And then so I got on there, met a ton of people, like the OGs from 2018. There's a handful of them, but
Earl
I know all
Manning
of them.
in that group 28 delays
Yeah,
later, right?
Earl,
Omar,
K10,
or actually, Steve Jobs
Vincent,
Ghost, right?
yeah, Omar, all of those guys. I mean, again, the list is probably even longer than that, but like even Ross Gerber, like,
Yeah.
Gary Black, just again, all the OGs that were, tooting the horn of like, this company is going to be amazing and, getting all the flack.
Yeah, and that at that point too, I got my Tesla in December of 2018, I think it was. But even at that point, people were talking about like, is this company going to stick around? What's the future of them? If I buy a Tesla today, how do I know that it's even that like if I have an issue with it, that the company is going to be here to fix it? So you got in right at that point too, or even a little before. Like that production hell level that was like 2016,
Exactly.
2017. So
Yep.
pretty. You
Yep.
got to see the bad blossom into the very beautiful. So it's a cool story for you there.
Yeah, and those were during the hell weeks, right? They were trying to ramp to 5,000 per week, and that was during the thick of it. So I was
It
happy.
sounds so small now. It feels like 5,000 a week.
And yeah, at the time, like, you're taking a risk on buying a car that may go, or the manufacturer may go bankrupt. But once you
Right.
experience it, even if it was like, I guess it just would have been a local commuter car and, hopefully nothing happens. But again, it was an amazing car. So, if you look at the TOSV account, it was created in July of 2018. But again, it was started as a personal account. It was, not everything not ever something. And like my first tweet, it was literally, where are the Tesla owners in the Bay Area? That's literally what my first tweet was on that account. And I had again been on Twitter before, so I'm a huge fan of the platform. At least, I had been very familiar with it on top of all the other, amazing social platforms out there as well. But it was one of those things where, yeah, I jump on and, people started telling me about this Tesla owners program. And I found out about it. I was able to kind of like check to see if there was like one in the Silicon Valley, which is insane. There had been clubs that had been going for 5 years. No one started one in the Silicon Valley.
Which is like the heart,
The
the
heart of it.
heartland.
They're like, I don't know if someone was just buying a Tesla and just, but also too, I'll be honest. People in the Bay Area, you have people coming from all over the world to work, not to
Right.
play.
Right.
So we may be buying Teslas for tech, for fun, and things like that, but people don't have always a lot of personal time. And so, like, for example, I'm one of those few people when you meet people that are actually from the Bay Area that grew up here, have been here, been kind of all over the South Bay, really. And so it was just one of those things where, I found out about it at the time. It was like 25 VINs. And then, you needed to start doing a couple of events. So then I went and I met Trevor from, at the time, it was Trevor Page. It's Model 3 owners.
Yeah. Yeah.
He started retweeting my stuff. And like, because at the time, like whenever I would tweet, I would tag everyone and their mom, because you're kind of nobody. And but that's the big thing. Like, and I always will remember, like, one thing, as much as people, it doesn't matter how big we get, if we do keep getting big, I will always remember those people who helped me, one. And
For
two,
sure.
I will always do my best to help others when possible. Like, and so he retweeted my stuff. So I was able to get the 25 VINs. I remember I hit up my neighbor, my other neighbor who had Teslas. I was like, just give me your VIN number, dude. Like, I just need to start this thing. I started, we had our first event at an IKEA parking lot, East Palo Alto.
Supercharger
And
or just the
yeah,
parking lot?
yeah, it was
Okay.
at the
I
time,
was like,
yeah, there
that's
was
interesting.
Supercharger.
I guess you like IKEA. Good Swedish meatballs, right?
Yeah, there's a Starbucks there. There was, a couple other big stores. But I was like, I guess, like, so, it's pretty incredible. Like, Kelvin showed up. We had some of the OG leaders from the East Bay Club, the North Bay Club, the origins of the North Bay Club, like, members were there. But, people just getting together and like,
So
I
Kelvin
don't have,
literally is a day one since the first event.
what'd you say?
Kelvin, by the way, for those who don't know, Kelvin Gee is our vice president for TOSB, but he was literally at the first event ever. That is very
Yep,
cool.
exactly. Yeah,
Truly a
and
day
some of the,
one member. Yeah.
and one thing I don't want to leave out is there was two other awesome founders, Ram Gang Steady, awesome guy. And then he actually helped me build the first website. That was super dope. And then Samir, who I've known since like first grade. So, and I knew him. He was one of those first people, not only did he have a Tesla, but it was one of those things where I had known him so long and, we had just been good friends, reconnected. So those shout out to those guys, because they also played a huge role in the early days. And so, which is crazy because it's like sometimes it's there's been so much history in the past 4.5 years. You sometimes forget just how everything was brought together. So that's kind of how we started. And then from there, it was just, you go from 25 bins to doing events to, and then also too, to be quite honest, I believe, and if I do this all right, I started getting interactions with Elon during, like, in that late October time period, like after we were getting close to starting the club and stuff. So, and my first tweet like from him was and I don't remember the exact number, reason 5,965 reasons why I love Tesla is because, like, he had released track mode. Tesla had released track mode over the air. And I literally posted that. That was the first interaction. And so I think, you have two perfect storms. We were in the heart of the Silicon Valley. People had paid it forward to again start this thing
Right.
at that time. Had a couple of great co-founders, and then also too, it was I found one of those things, and I told you it was one of those things I was just super passionate about, which was technology, and Tesla is at the bleeding edge of it. Sure, some people may not like always the build quality or some of this other stuff, but you are dealing with the bleeding edge of technology as far as like how amazing the car is, right? And so it was just like one of those things where, and again, I had a couple of really cool experiences, like, being a part of like some small communities growing up and stuff like that. So I had no idea really how to like do it before and stuff, but I loved talking to people. That's one thing if you ever come up and talk, feel free to come and say hi and stuff. But if we have a moment, sometimes events are a little crazy. So give me the benefit of the doubt there. But a lot of times, like, I just want to talk, get to know you. And that's actually how you and I connected. Like, I think we've had a bunch of conversations. We had personal conversations on the side. I think I even talked to you at Tesla Owners Day of 2022. For a little bit, it was chaotic there. But it was just one of those things where, I'm very personable. And so you have something that, you know, being able to want to build a community, an amazing car, and then, so it just made the actual, like, building something like what we have today just kind of like was that lane that I didn't really ever know I was going to be a part of something like this, but I knew this was something special, and I started to run, 150 miles an hour. My wife was just a huge supporter and enabler of making that happen. And so if it wasn't for that, there's no way that we would have become what we are and
That's
potentially
great.
where we're going.
So big
So
piece of it is that internal support from family, literally to your brother-in-law being part of the support of yourself, getting up to Fawad,
exactly.
and then folks like Trevor Page and some of the early giants of the community that help promote, and I definitely see what you do with especially with the Twitter account, where you are doing your best to help some of the new kids on the block, for lack of better terms. That's pretty cool to see
Yeah,
them as they're progressing.
yeah, just a quick shout out to some of the people that, did help. And again, there's probably a bunch of people. Eli Burton from My Tesla Adventure, Dennis from, Tesla Owners of Orange County. Like, those were all guys that they had run successful clubs. And so my goal was like, hey, how do just give me your wisdom and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And without getting too much into it, our club, the way we started, rubbed people the wrong way. We started on Twitter. Like,
Hmm.
most of the OG clubs didn't start that way. So, not only were we a tweeting all the time type of club, we were completely, running social. We were probably one of the few people ever in the program that really understood the meaning of Twitter and really got it. And so that kind of just like it's almost like, imagine lighter fluid and lighting it, but not that it run. You know how lighter fluid runs out, but imagine lighter fluid that's just going all the time. And that's literally what we were doing, not putting something on fire. We were just blowing up. as far as like the digital presence and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just because we came in, the one thing that will always make us different than the majority of the clubs is that we never expected anybody to hand us anything. I never felt a sense of entitlement, like someone owes me something or I need something extra from somebody to get this other thing. For me, just being able to be passionate about talking about having a Tesla was good enough. And that alone, instead of waiting by the door for somebody to walk through to hand me the baton, I went and grabbed the baton myself, along again with a bunch of other people in support of, my family. But that's always going to be the difference is
Right.
that when you find something that you're super, and maybe it was just because I found something was super passionate about rather than this cool club I could be a part of. Like, people have started these awesome clubs and they just are holding on to it and not doing anything for the local community, and it sucks.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that over the years, whether it's just the club program, but it could, far beyond that. When people are doing something with their heart, they're not doing it with money in mind. They're not doing it with power or stage presence. They don't care about that. They're doing it because they genuinely just have a very good and pure heart. They want to do something for the best of not to be solely dramatic, like the best of humanity. Like Elon, you look at Elon, it's like what he's doing isn't, yeah, he's the world's richest man on paper, but he's living a super humble life. And it's like that's what's more important than anything is just having a pure and humble heart. And you see the fruit of that, which is like Tesla, TOSV, and some of the other greatest companies that are out there. That's a really solid point. And it's
Yeah.
actually, what, maybe you could even add, this is a little off topic but on topic, which is since like October, I think we had like 600 something thousand followers across platforms. Now we're at like 860. How do you how do you keep like level headed and humble and like, okay, I'm like influencer level over here now. How do I do my best to maintain a humble spirit?
Yeah, and I'm gonna back up a little bit. So if I digress, you may have to bring me back. But I wanted to hit on the Elon point about where he's at. So people, it's kind of like growing up. Who was the big wig in the room? It was Bill Gates. He was the big, he was the richest person in the world. I didn't exactly know the Microsoft story and all this other stuff. The difference about Elon is that most billionaires, let alone millionaires, right? It's like, he has this incredible story, right? Like, he applied to Netscape. He and I think he was actually like maybe too nervous to even talk to anybody. So he went and stood in the lobby. And then he's like, all right, well, this is not going to work. So I'm going to have to go start my own company. And then, but long story short, this guy has literally come from pretty much nothing. Everyone wants to say, oh, he was wealthy. No, he literally came from nothing, $2,000 in his pocket. We're going to interview his mom at the Tesla takeover in 4 months, July 29th through the 30th. She's going to tell us about her incredible story. The focus is going to be her, not necessarily Elon. There may be one or two questions about Elon, but it's going to be focused on her amazing story. And you're going to hear, again, tune into that one we posted. It's not going to be live streamed, but we'll record it and post it. So it's going to be one of those things where, she essentially, they came from nothing. And not only did they, that he did well with PayPal, but what did he do when he got that money? Sure, he bought like, I think, a nice car or something, like a McLaren or
Which
something.
didn't last too long, sadly.
Exactly. And then what does
He
the
had
guy
like one of
do?
the best cars ever. And
What does the guy do? He's like, I'm going to go disrupt the two hardest industries and that are very capital intensive: rocketry, automotive. And it's one of those things where he wanted to make a huge difference. And not only that, and again, if you check out our interview with Elon, just go to our channel. Just, you can see it on the playlist, but he shares about, his that journey of like how it was started. And he actually never wanted to be the CEO of Tesla. He came because he had been the biggest investor, and you know one of the other people that was involved was completely lying through their teeth on the cost of how much it costs to make a roadster. And so he had to get involved to save his investment, to save this company. So, and then what is he doing for 3 years? The dude's sleeping on the factory floor. 2008 was also, that was 2018. 2008 was even incredibly hard. I posted a tweet about this. 3 rocket failure launches for SpaceX. Tesla financing goes under. He's going through divorce and the Great Recession. He's like, party on. Like, so long story short, I just want to say, like, people think he's just like this richest person and
Right.
he's
They only
arrived.
see
No,
today. They
that's
don't
all they
know.
see.
Right.
And
Right.
but I think to answer your question, again, it's one of those things where I always remember my beginnings, the things that I've been through. And I don't look, sure, it's always easy to like look at the person that has all of the things and whatever. And again, you kind of forget their story and maybe you show favoritism. I try not to ever take that approach. And sometimes, sure, you're guilty of it here and there. Like when I meet like a Tesla influencer, I'm like, oh man, um, super cool. But you don't want to treat them better just because they have a bunch of followers. But no, it's always important to remain humble, to remember your beginnings, and not to get over. And there's that favorite quote. It's like, pride comes before the fall. And it's like one of those things where, sure, a lot of times I'll get, just people mad or jealous or whatever. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like our club has actually done the exact opposite of bragging and, pounding on people and doing this for our own clout. We've sent out 2 clubs. We have helped 2 or 3 others, sorry, call it 3 others start. And one of them actually was in a state where the club had the full state name, and yet, they that one state again was kind of running a club. It was kind of more of like a high end, go on cruises, winery, and it's just like it wasn't kind of like the way we're running things at the time, which was like meeting at superchargers, doing a barbecue. That's kind of, and so I mentioned to the person running the program, I was like, yo, you got to talk to this guy, great people. So our club has done the exact opposite to actually be a springboard for people, communities to start.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And like you said too, it's just the humility because if everything keeps going well and the blessings keep coming, TOSV we're predicting easily over 1 million followers by the end of this year, easily over that. But remembering humble beginnings is what keeps you humble.
Yeah.
Going through those pieces of suffering, and then I think you brought up a great point too about the club program. Just to talk on that a little too, which is every club is run differently. There's no president that oversees the entire program per se as far as how everyone operates their club. Some are going to say, hey, we'll keep this limited to 15 people, and we're just going to go to wineries and go on my yacht or something like that. And it's like, if that's how you guys want to do it, awesome, but then don't complain about another club and how they're being successful here, this or there. Like everyone they all have their unique attributes, what they're going to do well. There's ways we talk about this as far as growth of TOSV. But there's ways where we're like, can we do that? Like maybe not. Maybe that's where another club succeeds and they do super well in that category. But we've found specifically you through social media, you found the secret sauce. We might have to wait till next call to talk more about the present day. But maybe I'll ask you one more question. I know you have a
Definitely.
call coming up soon. But if you could you talked about the mission of TOSV earlier on too, so I think that was great. But perhaps it's been, I guess, 4 years or so since we've been officially founded, or maybe unofficially founded. But what has been your single greatest memory over that time? Like the one that stands out to you, like, yeah, best. And it could even be not necessarily because of the account, but it could be something like the Austin Gigafactory,
Yeah.
grand
Well,
opening, anything.
yeah. So stepping back to answer your first part of the question, really our mission as a club is to be, really to be, to help this transition to a sustainable future, and to do it by all means in all ways. So what that may mean is local events, that may mean beach cleanups, that may be writing a blog, creating some content, you know, doing like GoFundMe's to help, raise awareness for nonprofits, to do toy drives. Like we're here to help spread the we're trying to accelerate the transition as much as possible, and be again a resource to not only Tesla owners, future EV owners, future Tesla owners, sure, reservation holders. Like that's what we are about. And so that's why I love the aspect of like being a nonprofit, is because we get to better humanity through that. I mean, that's one of the major requirements, is, helping that transition. So that's what we're about. And that's the goal of what we are. And that is also why we have tried to help spread this as much as possible by sending out 2 clubs in the Bay Area, by also sending out and helping 2 or 3 other clubs start, like, and sometimes even having conversations behind closed doors to help push things a little bit to get things to happen. One of them being, another club outside in Southern California start, again in Florida. And then even the San Joaquin, we were a huge part of that as well, helping Joe start locally as well. So it's one of those things where that's what we're about. We're here to be a springboard and help other people. That's what we want to do. To answer your question, and also to probably kind of close this up a little bit, my favorite memory, I think, through all of this has been, I would say, there's been a couple things. One, it's been seeing the people that we helped. We helped Johanna specifically out of, I think it was Hurricane Ida. We helped her raise over, I think it was close to $8,000 to $10,000. We helped the Del Valley community group when Austin froze over. We helped them raise, I think it was like $12,000 to $15,000. Wow. We have, like, our reach and our ability to help when people are in dire need is like one of our strengths. That's just core to who we are. So one, it's being able to see that impact and those people's faces, like, it has been awesome. And really, to be honest, it's to build something where that it can make a huge impact is a big deal. And then lastly was doing, like, for me, it was kind of it was a life moment. But really, not only was it a life moment, it was literally my first time, because Elon and I had passed, paths several times. Like, he came, I think, in October of 2019 to the Tesla Club All Summit that one year. And then also too,
Oh
I
yeah,
had seen
yeah.
him at
I
the
remember this story. I
Cybertruck.
heard this.
I had seen him at the Cybertruck reveal, and then he also came to the Fremont factory on December 31st with his mom and other people. So I had met him in passing here and there. And so, and again, you're talking about also, we're like one of the top 5 accounts that regularly interacts with him. And so, we've had this relationship. We've also exchanged a ton of emails. And so for me to be able to meet this guy, it wasn't like a lot of people are like, weren't you starstruck? Like, weren't you like, how did you have these like amazing 4-hour conversation with him? And it's like, no, it's like I had been building this,
Right.
we had been building this, it sounds weird, not relationship, but we had been building this.
Yeah, friendship, relationship.
Sure. Whatever you want to call it. Like, we were one of his biggest supporters through production hell and all the way through. Like, we were putting out FUD all those years. So for me, it was like, so it's been 2 things. It's been seeing the impact and how much we can do for the community. And then the selfish part of me would be just, being able to sit down with the guy who started it all, and being able to not necessarily like be a favorite, but just to be part of the discussion with him, to be able to put, and to because we know the story. We don't know him. Like I said, as I was growing up, it was Bill Gates, but I didn't really know his story. I just knew he was the richest person in the world. Versus like, I actually saw this go from nothing to something. And that's what's awesome about it.
Yeah, I think, in this, I know you got to get going soon, but we'll definitely have at least 1 or 2 more on foundation and future of TOSV. But it's seeing yourself, like the first thing you said, it wasn't like, yeah, like even if you said, okay, I was meeting Elon, like that's awesome. But the first thing was, we've made a meaningful impact already on the world. And
Exactly.
not just by basic inspiration, but by actually, physical proof of helping out. And you look at someone like Elon too, and what he's doing. At the end of the day, it's like to help civilization, to help humanity, and then the
Exactly.
future, which would be potentially multiplanetary. So we'll definitely have some more questions on our next one about the current day, some of the more exciting pieces. If you want to wrap it up, just as far as you mentioned before about May Musk and her attendance at Tesla Takeover.
Yeah. Let me, while we're talking about that, so I do a good enough plug would be, so if you are free on July 29th through the 30th, we have an amazing event happening. Okay. So, and not only do we have an amazing event happening, we have some amazing speakers coming. So, keynote speaker being May Musk, world-renowned dietitian, model, entrepreneur, and best-selling author. So again, this is going to all be at the Madonna Inn. We have Sandy Monroe coming back for the second time. We have Kim Java coming for the first time. Gary Black, Ross Gerber. Ross is actually coming for the second time, but they're coming. They're going to be talking Tesla stocks. We have Meet Kevin. We have Farzad, who's going to give us the Tesla experience. We also have Bearded Tesla, Ryan McCaffrey from Ride the Lightning, who's actually a member. Bearded Tesla, he's coming all the way from Florida. And, we have a woman's panel that's coming, K10, Alexandra, Tesla Joy, Amy. And we also have, I think it's 2-Bit Vinci coming as well. There's a bunch of people coming.
Kanye's coming too, right?
Huh?
Kanye, he'll be there.
But yeah, no, it's one of those things where the event is presented by T Sport Line, so it's just going to be TeslaTakeover.com. Make sure you check it out. It's going to be an epic day, epic event. So I'm really looking forward to it. And then again, to be able to have a Musk come to this, and really, she's been a huge supporter of obviously Elon, is going to be a big deal. So make sure you check it out, TeslaTakeover.com.
Beautiful. Thanks, Sean. And we'll definitely look forward to having another podcast interview, whatever this is called, talking about today, because there's so many exciting pieces that are in the works right now, and forecast for the future.
Good.
So looking forward to that.
Thanks, Stephen, for hosting, man. I appreciate it. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe, spread the word. But yeah, we're here to help the community out and be a voice. Peace.
See you.